first panel during our conference, I would like to invite to the stage moderator of our panel, Elias Van Herwaarden, EMEA Service Leader, Global Location Strategies. Once again, Marek Grodziński, Vice President of ABSL, Piotr Pietrzak, Chief Technology Officer at IBM Poland and Baltics, and once again, David Poole and Aleksandra Przegalińska. Elias, the stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. Okay, Peter tried it, you had coffee, you're still asleep, let's stop this. So we're here to discuss human versus robots, and we've seen a lot of facts, and I've also been missing a couple of facts, because everybody's very excited. There was a report just last week by Horses for Sources, and they found that the market for RPA applications this year is a meager $443 million US. What are we talking about? The market will grow. It will triple in 4 years, but we're only talking about 1.5 billion. So is that something to be concerned about? I was speaking to Kelly Hallard, the president of the Global Sourcing Association in, I think it was London last week, on a seminar about outsourcing in Poland. And she went back to a conversation she had years ago with predominantly Indian outsourcers like Wipro. Back then they said that they would be losing 30% of the workforce in 3 years. Well, you all saw the figures that David just shared with us, where we saw huge peaks still this year. So something is not happening out there. I think what we're also seeing is massive predictions of losses of labor because of technology. We had David explaining how there is a brand new world out there. We had Aleksandra explaining that indeed we should probably be ready for it. Who will win? Well, let's have that discussion. And if I might start with you, Aleksandra, and this was not the question I gave you in preparation, sorry for that, but you mentioned that probably what was needed was a paradigm shift. And you told us about how we, in principle, react to computers, but didn't you also find that there's a lot of fear out there? Is humanoid really, or are the humans really ready to embrace the technology that David shared with us? What do you think?
Well, I think that it's not really clear at this point, and we really need to collect, unfortunately, more data in order to understand better to which technologies we adapt well and to which we don't. There is this very famous pyramid of how technology naturalizes itself, over time. So first, if technology kind of somehow gets invented, it's exposed to somehow real-life situations, let's say, and then it starts working. If it's a good technology, it becomes a bit invisible in the sense that we interact with it in a very smooth way. But there are other technologies and other, let's say, ways of interacting that we do not prefer and that we reject. And I think it's a very important trajectory to follow. So there are certain technologies we know right now. For instance, the example of humanoids is a very good one that will not get adapted, at least not in the Western civilization, because that may be very different for different parts of the world. But for instance, for humanoids, I think we have more humanoid machines now than we ever had in the past, but they just look very different, which means that we have little boxes like Alexa or many other home bots that are easily classifiable as machines. We know that they're machines. Their ways of interacting with us is way better because they use speech synthesis, they use natural language very well, they understand the context, and they also use voice technology, and sometimes they even have gestures. There is a famous Jibo bot from MIT that leans towards you when you talk to it, for instance. But they're easily classifiable as machines, and they don't look scary to you. Whereas humanoids that are resembling Terminator a bit is something that gets rejected. So I think there is a lot to do about the design and the user, really, and understanding how the user behaves in order to find proper solutions for us to get adapted. We shouldn't make it difficult for ourselves. I think we should make it easy. So I think long and meticulous process of beta testing is a very good solution to understanding which technologies are going to work out for us and which not, and which are crossing the line of our feeling of safety. So that's kind of the first answer that I would, indicate here.
That's good, and you talked about our resistance and how we can adapt. There was actually something that I read about you, David. You said something very brilliant the other day in one of your blogs. Let me just catch it because I'd like to quote you correctly. And you said, hang on, actually no, sorry, it was you, Piotr. You said that the only barrier to our imagination, where to take tech, is our own imagination. You lead delivery centers. You've been around the world. When you listen to what Aleksandra is saying about the barrier only being imagination, could you give us some examples on how you solve that and work with your people to drive new solutions, to drive technology, to drive robots?
Sure. This is, this quote represent the things which how I really think about the world in general. Because there are a lot of technologies. There are self-learning algorithms, machine learning algorithms, deep learning. We've got enough of data right now to understand the picture, images, music. It's just about our imagination what to do next. For example, we create, for example, the project where the Ginny the Kid, famous musician right now, started to analyze how the people are. What are the people feels about his music, for example. We create the system which creates the trailer of the movie by itself, by using the algorithms which were created and invented 50 years ago already. Now we had a technology which allowed us, for example, to analyze the whole movie from the video perspective, analyze the behavior of the users and the opinions of the users or the people who are watching the movie, look for the most scary, parts within this movie, put underneath the proper music, which was also, to some extent, the information about the feeling which music is creating in front of the users is based on the opinions as well, and combine the trailer. So let's imagine we are talking here a little bit about the robots, at the same a little bit about artificial intelligence. I think that to some extent we can distinguish both trends, because there was a lot of examples on your slides, especially where we were dealing with the robots without having artificial intelligence on the back end. And I think that the people are rather scared about the robots which will have the artificial intelligence at the back end. The examples of, for example, the Alexa systems, we can ask ourselves, is it an example of advanced artificial intelligence? I would say to some extent this is the example where the world is heading to, but this is most likely right now just implementation of the mathematical theories and physical theories which are right now possible to be implemented, like, for example, quantum computing as well.
I'd like to take you up on that. When we met earlier this year at the ABSL Diamond Awards, the theme about talent, education, workforce motivation was a very big thing, and a lot of prizes were given. Do you see that we are looking for a new type of resource with all that automation, and what are you doing about it in your own company?
Yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of jobs which we know today will be gone within the next 3-5 years. For example, even maybe personal assistant someday. There is no obstacle right now to build a relatively easy application which will support usual operations which we are dealing every day. For example, doing a proper calendar appointment. Calendars doesn't change for the last 15 years, from my perspective at least. There is no problems to build a system which will negotiate between two of us the place where we will meet, how we should dress, and in which restaurant or office, or depends on the occasion, we should meet. So this is the example of the application which can be built even right now. And I really like the competitions which are announced in regards to the conferences like ABSL, where the new startups come in and present, for example, their outcomes of their work, and sometimes the idea sometimes are great, sometimes discussable, but at the end they are moving the things forward.
Okay, so we got a friend of the robots sitting there, that is very clear.
Definitely, yes.
Actually, Marek is a friend of the robots, because this guy went on his blog and he said, take your robot out for a beer. So, how was last night?
Well, first let me comment, I would never want to have a personal assistant who is a robot. I always loved my personal assistants and I would never give up on them. Well, I think that's true that robots are coming, yes? And I fully agree with Ola who said we should be simply prepared for this. And I think that, I think it's a bit about our age, apart from Aleksandra, gray or not that much hair anymore. We are scared, yes, because we don't understand those things that well. But our children, they are tech savvy. They just, for them, it's so natural, and they are much better educated. And I think, when you look at Poland, within the last 20 years, the education level has just significantly increased, yes? Now, I think around 45-50% of, Polish young people have a higher education. Those people will be ready for this new world. And I think that, yes, some jobs will disappear, but new ones will pop up, as it has happened over the last 150 years in manufacturing, for example.
I would not necessarily agree. So I would not link the direct line between the education level and the technology adoption curve. I think that the technology adoption curve is rather driven by economy on the things which people can invest into it and spend on it, like, for example, the Alexa. So I would rather say that this is rather about the how much spending we can put into, let's say, some intuitive gadgets, let's say, in our even private home spending, through our home spending budget or whatever, rather than education itself.
Okay. Now, I think we got consensus here. Dave, then indeed to you. You once wrote, it's very difficult for a traditional BPO to become a robotic player. And many of us here are involved in captives or in BPO. But if indeed the BPOs have this difficulty, and the stats you shared with us kind of suggest that, what does it mean for the hybrid service delivery model? Where do you see that going based on your work with your clients?
Yeah, it's a challenge for the traditional BPOs, because actually, you think about the way that a BPO works or even a captive works, the vast majority of the management capability and skill that goes into that is about managing people. And whilst technology is being used to enhance the way the processes work or to make them work better, the mindset around technology has been quite static, frankly. And in fact, I think there was an example earlier. The tech we use at home is incredibly better, if you like, and more intuitive than the tech we get to use in the office. And I think that's just an illustration of why, the enterprise and the way that the enterprise employs people needs to adapt, and the way the mindsets need to adapt. So I think over time, obviously, us older folks will retire, and younger people will come into the business with a different mindset and a different sort of natural ability around technology. But for me, most of the traditional BPOs have really struggled with that. So as you look at particularly the Indian players, you look at the way they remunerate their managers, you think of the way they consider status. A lot of it comes down to how many people I manage and how many people are in my team. Even here in the nearshore markets, where we're doing much sort of higher value tasks. Those are, mostly high value tasks driven by the skills and the capabilities of the people, whether it's their language skills, whether it's their technical capabilities, their qualified accountants or their HR professionals. At some point, when you introduce technology into that dynamic, it becomes much more difficult. And particularly in automation, where what you're actually doing is trying to segregate within an individual those tasks which are actually very repetitive and, well, frankly boring, you're trying to take those out and give those to a robot to do, it becomes quite challenging. If you build a set of processes from the bottom up with technology and robotics and AI in mind, rather than trying to adapt from the top down, it's much easier to do that. So I look in my organization, most of our staff are very young, and when we look at a client's opportunity to use technology, we're looking at the process from the beginning. We don't have any legacy thinking about it. We don't think about conventional structures of finance or HR. We just think about the process and how that could be delivered using the automation. And yes, there are tasks that humans need to do. And you need to find the right task for them to do where they can use their skills to the best effect.
Marek, in your capacity as an ABSL board member, how much of what David is sharing with us do you see echoing in your conversations with your membership today? Is this something that we're struggling with? And is there something we could do about it as ABSL?
Well, first of all, I rarely hear success stories about robot RPA implementation. When I meet my colleagues from centers, they say, yes, we tried. Yes, we did a couple of robots. Yes, we saved 0.7 FTE. And we stopped this because, we don't know how to do that. It's too expensive for us. And we don't have knowledge how to do that. I mean, if you look at the market, how many players are really able to implement robotics now? I mean, how big is your company, David, now? 100 people?
150. Yeah.
150? Okay, and there are probably a couple of those boutique organizations who can do that. The Big Four is also, implementing this. But generally, if you look around in the, this large sector, unfortunately, I don't know. But right now, I don't think there is, the centers or people from our business have capabilities to properly, employ robots and maintain them, because this is another thing. You can build this robot, you can put it there, but then the screen changes and your robot, is broken, and then you have to repeat it. So, I don't think that there is a lot of buzz, but I didn't see a lot of success stories again.
Yeah, could I just add something? Because I really agree a lot. We have a lot of failures, right? Failures in technological adoption. And I think these failures also stem from the fact that we are not equipped with proper competences to do it. So if we are stuck with the model where, as I said before, we're not testing, we're not implementing, which means we are not also building skills, right, in people widely, right, which has a lot to do with education, I think. In order to improve technologies, they will not get improved and the money will be just lost. So, I mean, there are too many situations right now where projects that are very promising are just failing. And I think it does have a lot to do with a paradigmatic change to more collaborative, open approaches where everybody is building technologies together and not only some, right? Because then you will have an elite who knows what is going on and the rest which will either adopt or not adopt, right? And you will always have that risk. And also you will not have a good society, but you will have a lot of polarization, and you will have a lot of conflicts. If we want to really build savvy machines, we should also replicate our best features, such as collaboration, and not the worst ones, which are, I don't know, lack of inclusion, lack of competence building, and so on. And I really believe that, artificial intelligence in the long run is a very collaborative project. And if we want to be safe with it, we just really need to manage it very inclusively.
We should also forget about building a huge project. I would say that start small and die fast. So rather by doing multi-million project in the waterfall mode, old mode, which we all used to it, or at least remember, we should go into more agile way to do such project.
There was a question I wanted to ask you, because we're here in the European Union, we're extremely diverse. We got an aging population on the West, so they need computers, they need robots. And we got a whole workforce, very young, very enthusiastic, multilingual, tech-savvy, that wants something else than transactional jobs. So isn't these rise of the robots actually a blessing for us in Europe? And let's forget about India, that's their problem. What do you think?
I'm fully agree with you.
You
The
agree?
rise of the robots is something which we can bless at the end, because it push our not only people skill but also technology forward. That's the one thing. It will improve further our economy, and at the end create a completely slightly different areas of jobs, which will be probably more advanced from the or more or will require from the person much more skill and at higher education level, definitely also from technology standpoint, but will move forward also our society. So I am treating this as a huge plus at the end.
So humans, at least in Poland, are the winners, yes?
Right.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the wrap-up. There's one question I love. It's my Harry Potter question. And normally I give everybody 3 answers, but in the interest of time, Aleksandra, if you would have a magic wand and you would be Hermione, not Harry Potter, what is it that you would do about the race of humans versus robots?
Well, I would like us to be taught by machines how to get rid of those bad things that we have in us. In a sense that if I could do something, I would just create, I guess, a moral machine that is not entirely based on how we function, but slightly better. And then maybe we could learn back from it.
So you want the machine to be your guru?
Well, I would like us to be on the same level at some point, but I think there are some things that we could learn from a machine.
Okay. David?
I think for me, it's all about the collaboration of the machine and the human in the workplace. And I think we need to learn how to work with this technology, how to embrace it, and how to make a success of it. If we don't, I don't think the problem is that all the jobs are going away, by the way. I think the problem is that actually we have such an aging population issue. We have so many new technologies, so much more demand coming out for leisure activities, that if we don't, we will limit ourselves and will limit our human opportunity by not leveraging. So I want everyone to think about how they can implement these technologies, how they can develop their capabilities and skills, and then just get on with it.
one wish.
It was a long wish.
Piotr?
I think this is not a race against the machine. We are not, afraid, or we are not doing anything against the calculator. We are just using the calculators because they are calculating faster than we do, and that's obvious. So I would rather think about collaboration and how to utilize the modern technology in that sense, to utilize them there where they can bring a real value to our business, to our life, to our society and economy in the end.
Marek?
I would like the robots to make me work 4 hours a day and keep my income level.
Well, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the ring is over. I think we're coming to a situation that it looks like we all see a future out there where humans and their tools will act in an equilibrium. I'd like to close with something that Tim Cook said last week Friday to graduates at MIT. And he said, I'm not worried about artificial intelligence teaching computers or giving computers the ability to think like humans. I'm more concerned about people thinking like computers, without values and without compassion. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.